You want to cook crystal meth? You and me.
That's right.
Wow.
Either that, or I turn you in.
The unique character dynamic between Walt and Jesse in Breaking Bad is obviously one of the best executed dynamics in TV history. The way the two different personalities and characters combine into one overarching narrative makes it evident as to why Breaking Bad is as widely respected and loved as it is. It's a masterpiece, not just in storytelling, but in character development, cinematography, cultural impact, and essentially every other narrative device. Of course, Breaking Bad is about the rise and fall of Walter White's meth empire, how one normal, innocent, overqualified chemistry teacher can tap into his potential and become a kingpin. Struggling with balancing family life and his newfound career success, Walter's story is, of course, one of pride and power, but just as much one of tragedy, ego, and downfall. But to say Breaking Bad is solely Walter White's story would be a lie. While of course Breaking Bad does follow the life of Walter White, it just as much leans on the back of Jesse Pinkman, a young 20s kid whose life falls down the wrong path as he begins cooking meth. He reunites with Walter, his old chemistry teacher, and together the two begin their meth empire. Jesse Pinkman stands as the perfect example of a Deuteragonist, which is defined as the second most integral character to a story. While the story does not directly revolve around them, their actions and developments influence the stories in more ways than every other character besides the protagonist. I've always found the concept of a well-done Deuteragonist so incredibly intriguing. How a seemingly side character can have such a monumental impact on a story, oftentimes becoming a fan favorite and, in certain cases, the main character towards the end of the story. The most important feature of a well-executed Deuteragonist is their ability to influence a story while not directly spearheading it. Their actions, choices, and relationships build and continue the story, but the story does not directly revolve around them. They're essential to the overarching narrative of story. They're typically in every single episode, and the ones where they aren't generally don't perform as well with audiences. I've come to realize that an excellently done Deuteragonist generally falls into 5 main important story elements. How their personality traits and actions both influence and fall into these 5 traits generalize how good of a Deuteragonist they are. These traits being independence. They stand as their own character who have different relationships and motivations outside of the main character. Foil. They work to highlight the protagonist's strengths and weaknesses through contrast. Both the protagonist and the Deuteragonist grow and change alongside each other. Agency. Having a key sense of motivation and goals ensures that the character has an active drive and influence on the plot. Agentic Deuteragonists create meaningful and independent subplots, adding depth to the narrative. Alternative perspective offers a differing viewpoint to the protagonist, shows how the actions of the protagonist directly benefit or harm those around him, also provides a greater outlook on the world in which the story takes place, and arguably the most important aspect of all, the character development. Having a visible and comprehensible transformation throughout the course of a story portrays realistic character growth and forces the protagonist to evolve alongside them. Back to Jesse Pinkman though, whose character tremendously displays and excels upon each and every single one of these traits. But to better get a sense as to why Jesse fits into each trait, we're going to go through one by one, and I assure you, by the end of this video, you will understand why Jesse Pinkman is the greatest Deuteragonist of all time.
I was thinking about that thing you said about the universe. Going where the universe takes you. Right on. I think it's a cool philosophy.
I was being metaphorical. It's a terrible philosophy. I've gone where the universe takes me my whole life. It's better to make those decisions for yourself.
If you ask the wide majority of Breaking Bad watchers who the heart of the show is, the answer is likely to be Jesse Pinkman. Standing as the show's emotional and moral compass, his independence is marked by his refusal to feed into Walt's descent into tyranny. While Walt's journey has the end goal of ultimate power, Jesse's journey has the end goal of simple peace and survival. Initially subservient due to addiction, loneliness, and a lack of direction, Jesse's independence grows as he learns from the world around him. Faced with abuse, murder, and depression, Jesse keeps pressing forward, hoping for a life of happiness in the future. His character is defined for his love of the innocent and the distrust of the world around him. He cares for human life, advocating for a long and prosperous life for everyone, connecting to children and finding peace within them, shown in Brock, or in one of my favorite Breaking Bad episodes with the kid shown in Season 2's Peekaboo. As the show progresses and Walt becomes lured to his inevitable death, Jesse's guilt over the murder of Gail Bedecker and all the other wrongdoings in his life drives him away from Walt's manipulation. Jesse seeks redemption rather than power. What makes Jesse so memorable is that throughout the story he retains his consciousness. Despite the murders and abuse, Jesse retains his kind spirit and just keeps fighting for his freedom. Jesse shows that his worth as an independent character when he breaks free from the continual father-son dynamic that Walt imposes onto him. Jesse realizes that Walt views him as a tool rather than a friend or even just a partner, resulting in his ultimate act of independence as a person, refusing to cook meth, eventually cutting ties with Walter, and rejecting the fortunate prospect of blood money. Jesse isn't solely independent in just his personality either, he's independent in the narrative as a whole. While other characters are destroyed by their involvement in the meth trade, including Walter, Gus, and Mike, Jesse is the only one who truly redeems himself, surviving until the very end as shown in El Camino. Unlike Walter, who is driven by ego and the need for legacy, Jesse is driven by the desire for love and connection. And throughout Breaking Bad, Jesse's independence is defined by his realization that survival and peace is his ultimate happy ending, whenever and however that may be. Foils are important because not only are they designed to be their own character, much of what they represent is a reflection of the protagonist. What they care for and explore provide depth to the personalities or characteristics of the narrative main character. Throughout the entirety of Breaking Bad, Jesse continually acts as the ideal foil to Walter. From the beginning to the end, despite both characters' rapid developments, they continue to counteract each other. We don't truly get to know Jesse until the very end of the first episode, which was done on purpose so that we could learn more about Walter's character before being introduced to Jesse. As I mentioned earlier, Walter starts the show as a timid, overqualified chemistry teacher. He's poor, he's battling cancer, he's at his wit's end. He only turns to the meth industry as a last-ditch resort. He's overshadowed and humiliated by Hank at his own birthday party. It is made very clear to the audience that this is the lowest point of Walter's life. When we first see Jesse, he's shown as careless, irresponsible, and impulsive. Both characters are so entirely different, yet when they decide to team up, it makes sense. Of course, it's awkward and weird and confusing for a little bit as the start of the show, but as they both get more involved in the meth industry and learn more about each other, they click and they work together well. Despite both characters representing similar goals, making money, Jesse's heart is in an entirely different place. Throughout the show, there are so many examples of Walter's priorities being completely different. In the Peekaboo episode I mentioned earlier, while Walter focuses on the business, Jesse cares for the neglected child he finds in the druggie's house. On top of that, Jesse's care for children and the innocent directly contrasts with Walter's tunnel vision perspective. While Jesse is traumatized by the poisoning of Brock or the murder of Drew Sharp, Walt views these events as simple obstacles in his journey. Arguably the most tragic moment for Jesse throughout the entire course of Breaking Bad is Jane's death. Following her overdose, Jesse breaks down in emotional agony, whereas Walter views her death as a meaning to further grow his meth business and keep Jesse in check. There are so many more ideal examples of Jesse's contrast to Walter, but you get the gist. Jesse as a character reflects the contrast between cold, calculated criminality and emotionally driven humanity. As Walter descends in ego and power, Jesse ascends into empathy and passion. Another key reason why Jesse Pinkman stands out not only against other Breaking Bad characters, but other Deuteragonists across television history is Jesse's agency to the Breaking Bad narrative. Jesse isn't simply reacting to Walt. He's not a storytelling device or a tool. He's his own character who drives a narrative in his own way. He makes choices that meaningfully alter the direction of the plot. He's not simply a passive passenger alongside Walter's ascent. He's a co-author of it. His decisions create vital turning points in the story, whether it be Jesse's ultimate hesitation and horror over the idea of killing Gale, turning against Walt when he supports Mike, or even Jesse inevitably turning against Walter as the Empire comes crashing down. While Walter does have him under control for a lot of the story, he does resist Walt's manipulation many times. That resistance truly matters. It forces Walter to adapt to his new surroundings, escalate the situation in an attempt to prove his power, or in dire situations, unravel. Jesse has his own goals and dynamics independent of Walter, whether it be wanting to get clean and break the cycle of alcoholism and depression from across his life, wanting to protect kids like I mentioned earlier, or even just wanting to make amends with those he's wronged in the past. These goals drive entire subplots, some of which stress across the entirety of the narrative, which we would have never gotten to see if Jesse didn't play such a monumental role in the narrative. Jesse's agency is what makes him feel like a real person rather than just a simple narrative tool. He reflects the life of someone who could be living in our society right now. It could be a neighbor, a family member. He's realistic, he's troubled and raw, unlike Walter towards the end of Breaking Bad, who is entirely just a fictional character. Jesse stays true, he pushes back, he changes the direction of the narrative, and he forces the story to evolve alongside him. At its fundamentals, Breaking Bad is a story about moral decay. Walter's perspective becomes increasingly cold, rational, evil, self-justifying, and unrealistic. He turns into a psychopathic mass murderer, whereas Jesse provides the human cost, the emotional fallout, and the moral clarity that Walter inevitably lacks. As I just mentioned, Jesse's character provides a completely unique and previously unseen viewpoint of the Breaking Bad rise, triumph, and fall. While Walter's ego and pride is on an upward trajectory throughout the entirety of the story, Jesse's definitely is not. His character goes through highs, lows, and crashes several times throughout the story. He reacts like any of us would to the sight of what's unfolding in front of him. His breakdowns, his remorse, and his attempt to make wrongdoings right provide a moral anchor to the story. For example, even when Todd shoots the kid in the desert, Walter looks on, expressionless. He's gone. He doesn't care. To Walter, the murder of this innocent child is nothing. He barely reacts. He doesn't even move. Jesse, on the other hand, is horrified. He screams, and this traumatic event sticks with him forever. Even another example, the murder of Gail Bedecker. Walter sees this as a latch-ditch effort. He doesn't view Gail as a person with emotions or ambitions. He views him as a competitor who needs to die in order for his success. So he orders Jesse to kill him, to which Jesse remorsefully does. Walter celebrates the death and argues to Gus that they can continue cooking right away, whereas Jesse, right next to him, stays silent. He hates himself for what he did. At this point in the story, this is the lowest Jesse has ever felt, and it shows. While sure, Jesse and Walter are partners, he also represents the people Walt exploits. Whether it be addicts, kids, partners, or anyone just caught in the blast, Jesse reacts to the repercussions. Jesse's raw, human, realistic emotions pave the way to highlight the loss of Walter's. This is easily the most important factor when it comes to writing a character. It doesn't even need to be the main character or Deuteragonist for that matter, but simply any character. To show a simple, realistic, comprehensible, and enjoyable path of change or reflection in a character is so satisfying to watch. A good example of this is the character Sokka from Avatar. Sure, he's important to the story, but he's certainly not the main character, and let alone not the Deuteragonist. He starts Avatar as a sexist, cocky, and just kind of a jerk, but it's understandable to an extent. Up to this point, he's grown up in the remains of the Southern Water Tribe. As the highest ranking male figure, it's natural his character behaves this way. So to watch Sokka develop throughout the story to fight the Fire Lord and become respectful, understanding, and a strong fighter is so fun to watch. Staying on the same path as Avatar, Zuko's character development is easily just as important. He starts the story betrayed, angry, and hopeless. He's desperate to regain his power within the Fire Nation, yet over time understands the evil and cruelty the Fire Nation has bestowed on the world and begins to work alongside the Avatar, even leading him to help defeat his father, the ruler of the Fire Nation. But back to Jesse Pinkman. Jesse's story starts bleak. As a young druggie with really nothing going for him, he remarkably transforms throughout the story. While Walter's arc is one of descent and madness, Jesse's is a struggle towards redemption and freedom. He starts as a directionless burnout, but he slowly becomes a character with the highest moral conscience and sense of direction. He tries to break the cycle of violence, addiction, and manipulation, and even when he fails, he puts forth effort to show a sense of growth. His trauma isn't merely for shock value. It shapes his decisions, his psyche, and by the inevitable end of the story, his view of freedom. Jesse's arc is about survival, a search for self-worth and reclaiming his pride. To watch him claw his way out of the darkest time of his life gives the story an emotional weight that Walter White simply cannot provide. Jesse's personal ending in Breaking Bad completes the emotional arc of the story that Walter's lacks. While Walter's story showcases the life of a man who loses his humanity, Jesse's story showcases the life of a man who gains his. Jesse's ending completes the emotional arc that Walter simply cannot have. Walter dies in the world of pain that he created, whereas Jesse escapes it. Even Jesse's conclusion as a whole still portrays the perfection of the pair between him and Walter. Walter's arc is one of corruption, and Jesse's is one of reclamation. While Walter accepts his death at the hands of the life he made for himself, Jesse continues to fight. He escapes the Nazi compound and drives without a goal in mind. While we pick him up in El Camino, Jesse is now the main character. His character steps into the primary focal point that Walter once held. El Camino follows Jesse's quest for true freedom, with several points along the way making it as hard as possible for him to get there, so that when he does finally gain his freedom escaping to Alaska, we as the audience know that he's earned it. We don't know what his character is up to now after El Camino. We don't know what happened to him after Ed drives away, and that's frankly the perfection of Jesse's ending. With every other central character of Breaking Bad, such as Walter, Mike, Gus, Todd, Saul, the neo-Nazis, and so many more, we know exactly what happens to them. Their ending is directly explained to the audience, whereas Jesse's is left purely ambiguous. Going back to the point of agency I touched on earlier, which I feel perfectly represents the culmination of Jesse's entire arc, some of his biggest moments toward the end of the story represent the ultimate expression of agency. In Breaking Bad, his refusal to kill Walter and Felina, despite having every reason to, visually shows the audience Jesse's refusal to step away from Walt once and for all. El Camino goes to prove that Jesse's story wasn't merely a subplot to Walter's. It was essential to the perfect Breaking Bad world building. If Jesse was merely a simple side character, El Camino would not exist. The fact that El Camino in a whole does exist highlights Jesse's perfection in displaying humanity, redemption, and true character as a perfect Deuteragonist. To wrap this up, Jesse Pinkman is obviously my favorite character in Breaking Bad, and I think it's clear as to why. He's easily the most important and necessary Deuteragonist in TV history. And if you have any other characters you'd like me to analyze, please feel free to let me know in the comments, as well as any other thoughts you have towards this video. If you did stick around this far, I really do appreciate it, and I would appreciate any support you can leave on this video or my channel as a whole, but if not, that's totally fine too. Make sure to check back for more updates or videos like this. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.